determines the true value of a timepiece? Is it the shimmer of VVS diamonds? The complexity of a tourbillon movement? Or is it something far more intangible, something that money explicitly cannot buy? Welcome to a special high-stakes edition where we dive deep into the vault of national treasures. Today, we aren't looking at market prices or auction records. We are looking at historical weight. We are talking about the legendary Blue House watches, the exclusive diplomatic timepieces gifted directly by the President of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, to the 7 global icons. These aren't just accessories. They are symbols of state's diplomatic credentials worn on the wrist, and a badge of honor for the special presidential envoys for future generations and culture. Imagine the atmosphere. The Blue House. The crisp suits, the heavy responsibility of representing an entire nation at the United Nations. But here is the burning question that has horologists and the army scratching their heads. What makes these deceptively simple? Elegant watchers more coveted than $1 million Richard Mille. What is the hidden meaning behind the Phoenix emblem on the dial? And specifically, how does this gift cement their legacy, not just as idols, but as national heroes? We are about to unravel the mystery, the emotion, and the sheer prestige behind the 7 most exclusive gifts in K-pop history. From the youngest to the oldest, who wore it with the most pride. Are you ready to witness what true honor looks like? Fasten your seatbelts, keep your eyes on the screen, because this countdown is absolutely priceless. Number 7. Jungkook, the Golden McNays, diplomatic weight. To kick off our countdown of national prestige, we have to start with the youngest. The Golden McNay who grew up right before our eyes, Taehyung. Because nothing defines the passage of time and the weight of maturity quite like seeing the boy who once shied away from cameras, now standing tall in the Blue House. On September 14th, 2021, the atmosphere inside the Cheongwade was thick with anticipation. A historic collision of pop culture and high-level diplomacy that felt almost surreal. And there, standing with his hands politely clasped, was Jungkook, looking sharper than a razor in a fitted black suit that hid his famous tattoos but couldn't hide. The overwhelming aura of pride radiating from him. When President Moon Jae-in approached him, holding that beige box, it wasn't just a gift-giving ceremony. It was a coronation of character for a young man who had carried the pressure of global stardom since he was 15. The watch in question, often simply called the Moon Watch or the Presidential Blue House Watch, is a masterclass in understated power featuring a simple beige dial, the signature of President Moon Jae-in, and the majestic phoenix emblem symbolizing the president's authority, flanked by the Rose of Sharon, Korea's national flower, representing eternity and resilience. For a collector like Jungkook, who has been spotted wearing Rolexes that cost more than a luxury car, this quartz timepiece, which likely costs less than a few $100s in raw materials but is strictly illegal to sell and impossible to buy, holds a value that eclipses his entire jewelry box because you cannot purchase this at a boutique in You have to earn it by elevating the nation's image on the global stage. As Jungkook accepted the watch with a deep, respectful bow, receiving it with 2 hands in the traditional Korean manner. The cameras caught a glimpse of a young man who had transcended the label of an idol to become a true envoy. And if you look closely at the footage, you can see the sheer reverence in his eyes, a stark contrast to the fierce charisma he shows on stage. This watch was the prelude to their departure for the 76th United Nations General Assembly in New York, where Jungkook would stand at the podium, not to sing a hook, but to speak for a generation lost in the pandemic and later, when they performed Permission to Dance in the empty UN General Assembly Hall. That watch was likely tucked under his cuff, ticking away in rhythm with his heartbeat. A silent guardian, reminding him that he wasn't just representing big hit music, but the Republic of Korea itself. The narrative here is so emotionally charged because we have watched Jungkook go from a middle schooler in a yellow uniform to a diplomat holding a red diplomatic passport. And this watch serves as the physical anchor of that transformation. It is fascinating to note that the phoenix on the watch dial is a creature of legend that appears only in times of peace and prosperity, which perfectly aligns with the message of hope. BTS carried to the UN. While critics might obsess over the specs, it's a modest, reliable movement. Likely made by a small Korean watchmaker to support local businesses rather than a Swiss giant. The true spec sheet is the history attached to it. For Jungkook, wearing this watch is a statement that he is no longer just the baby of the group. He is a pillar of soft power. The leather strap, likely a high-grade domestic leather, wraps around the wrist that has held microphones in sold-out stadiums from Wembley to But on this day, the weight on that wrist was different. It was the weight of future generations and culture. There is a beautiful irony in the fact that known for his edgy style, piercings, and ink, wore this symbol of the establishment with such natural grace, proving that the modern face of diplomacy doesn't have to look stiff or old-fashioned. It can look like a 24-year-old pop star who understands the gravity of his influence. The watch box itself, usually made of recycled paper to align with the eco-friendly policies of the Moon administration, contains the phrase, "People first," a philosophy that resonates deeply with BTS's own message of prioritizing their fans and humanity. Every time Jungkook glances at that dial, he isn't checking the time for a dance practice. He's reminded of that handshake with the president, the fist bumps with the first lady, and the moment he realized his voice mattered to world leaders. It is a priceless artifact that will likely be preserved in a museum one day. But for now, it remains in the possession of the Golden Mac. A timeless reminder that true luxury isn't about diamonds, but about the dignity of the person wearing it. Number 6. Kim Taehyung, the visual diplomat, timeless classic. If there is one member of BTS who treats life like a vintage movie scene, turning every mundane moment into a cinematic masterpiece of jazz and nostalgia, it is undoubtedly Kim Taehyung, widely known as V. And seeing him stride into the main hall of the Blue House was a moment that felt less like a political appointment and more like the climax of an epic drama where the protagonist finally receives his due on that crisp September morning in 2021. When V stepped forward to accept his letter of appointment and the coveted presidential watch from President Moon Jae-in, the air in the room seemed to shift, charged with the undeniable charisma of a man who was born to stand in the spotlight, yet approached this solemn duty with a gravity that silenced every critic. While Jungkook represented the youthful energy of the group, Taehyung brought a sophisticated, almost old-school elegance to the ceremony, his suit tailored to perfection, embodying the very essence of the special presidential envoy for future generations and culture. Now, let's talk about the hardware. Because for a man who has often seen sporting high-end luxury pieces from Cartier to Gucci, renowned for his eclectic and expensive taste in vintage accessories, you might think a humble government-issued watch would pale in comparison, but you would be dead wrong. The watch placed in V's hands that day carries a significance that no auction house in Geneva could ever replicate. This specific inaugural watch features the signature phoenix emblem sitting proudly on the dial, a mythical bird that represents the King Nor in modern terms. The President Tan historically symbolizes a reign of peace, virtue, and high moral standards. Concepts that aligned chillingly well with the good boy himself as V accepted the beige box. You have to wonder what was going through the mind of the boy from Jiusheng, who once thought he might become a farmer. Here he was, receiving a gift that is strictly reserved for state guests, diplomats, and individuals who have rendered distinguished service to the nation. The watch design is a masterclass in classic Korean minimalism, featuring a clean white beige dial, Shimpuru, Indi, K, C, and the president's signature in a design that resonates perfectly with V's love for classic, understated aesthetics. It is widely known in the collector's world that these watches are produced in limited batches by small, high-quality domestic manufacturers like Deokin or Romanson to promote Korean craftsmanship, making them incredibly rare. And for V, who values uniqueness over mass production, this exclusivity makes it priceless. During the ceremony, the cameras captured a fleeting but powerful moment. V's gaze wasn't just on the president, but on the responsibility the watch represented. A silent acknowledgement that his voice, his art, and his influence were now tools of national diplomacy. when he later stood at the United Nations General Assembly looking out at the world leaders. That watch was a hidden talisman under his sleeve, grounding him as he spoke about the resilience of the younger generation, famously coining the term welcome generation instead of lost generation. The emotional weight of this gift is compounded when you consider V's deep love for his family. Possessing a presidential watch is considered one of the highest honors a Korean family can boast of, a tangible proof of success that goes beyond Billboard charts or Grammy nominations. It is the kind of heirloom that gets passed down for generations, telling the story of the time a Kpop idol became a diplomat. Furthermore, the strap of the watch, made from genuine leather, likely warm to his skin as he traveled from Seoul to New York, acting as a constant ticking reminder of the Envoy roll that required them to travel across borders during a global pandemic to spread a message of hope. The phoenix on the dial also has a dual meaning. Just as the bird rises from the ashes, V and BTS have risen from the bottom of the industry to the very pinnacle of global influence. And this watch is the official government seal on that narrative. It is also worth noting the sheer flex factor here. While other celebrities might show off iced out APs or put. V owns a watch that money literally cannot buy. A watch that says, "I didn't just buy my way into the room. I was invited by the leader of my country to be here." The interaction between V and President Moon was also filled with a distinct warmth. V, known for his social butterfly personality, managed to make the rigid protocol feel human. His respectful bow and eye contact bridging the gap between pop culture and politics seamlessly. Every tick of that quartz movement is a heartbeat of Korean history, capturing a specific era where culture became the nation's strongest diplomatic asset. For the fans watching, seeing V, who often shares his love for jazz, art, and slow living wearing a symbol of fast-paced political power, was a beautiful contradiction, proving that he can inhabit both worlds with effortless grace. This wasn't just a gift. It was a recognition that Kim Taehyung is a national treasure, and the watch is merely the label on the masterpiece. Number 5. Park Jimin, the grace of the nation's pride. If that is one member whose journey feels like a beautifully choreographed contemporary dance piece, moving from the delicate vulnerability of a struggling trainee to the absolute pinnacle of global diplomacy, it is the Prince of Busan, Park Jimin. And witnessing him receive the presidential watch was a moment that etched itself into the heart of the nation on that historic day in the Blue House, as the autumn sun filtered through the grand windows of the main audience hall. Jimin stood with a posture that was both humble and regal, embodying the very essence of the soft power South Korea sought to project to the world. When President Moon Jae-in moved down the line to the third member, the tension in the room seemed to dissolve into a warm glow because Jimin, with his signature ice smile masked by a respectful seriousness, accepted the beige box with a reverence that spoke volumes about his upbringing. This wasn't just a transaction of goods. It was a transfer of trust. The watch inside, identical to the ones given to his brothers, yet unique in the story it would now carry, is a masterpiece of symbolic horology. Let's zoom in on the details that make this specific artifact so heart-stoppingly valuable. The dial features the rose of Sharon, a flower that blooms relentlessly despite harsh conditions, a poetic parallel to Jimin's own career, marked by grueling practice sessions, and a perfectionism that often kept him awake while the world slept. The watch is powered by a reliable quartz movement, a deliberate choice by the administration to symbolize constancy, accuracy, and an unwavering dedication to duty traits that Jimin displays every time he steps on stage. But the real emotional hook here lies in the phoenix emblem embossed in gold. In Korean mythology, the phoenix appears only when a virtuous ruler governs a peaceful nation. By gifting this to Jimin, the president was essentially designating him as a guardian of that peace, a cultural ambassador whose influence transcends borders. Can you imagine the weight of that? For a young man who once worried about whether he would debut, holding a watch that serves as a literal key to the highest echelons of diplomatic society is a narrative shift of epic proportions. As Jimin held the box, his fingers likely brushed against the people. First slogan printed on the recycled packaging. A mantra that mirrors his own philosophy of putting the army and his members above his own ego. The interaction was electric. While some members were stiff with nerves, Jimin exuded a natural grace, a fluidity that he brings to his dance, making the rigid protocol of the Blue House feel almost intimate. Later, as they prepared for the United Nations General Assembly, this watch became a part of his armor. We saw him at the UN, standing tall in the General Assembly Hall, and though his speech was about the challenges of the welcome generation, the glint of that watch on his wrist told a story of triumph. It was a signal to every young person watching from the remote corners of the world that kindness, hard work, and grace can indeed lead you to the same room as world leaders. The value of this watch is further amplified when you consider Jimin's deep connection to his family. One can only imagine the scene in the Park household in Busan when he brought this treasure home. It is the kind of honor that makes a father's chest swell with indescribable pride. A tangible proof that his son hasn't just made it as a singer, but as a distinguished citizen of the Republic of Korea. Unlike the luxury watches Jimin might wear for a photo shoot, the Cartiers or the Patek Philippe that signal wealth, this presidential watch signals character. It cannot be bought on the gray market. It cannot be traded. It is tied inextricably to the identity of the recipient. If this watch were ever to be lost, it would be a national incident, not because of the materials, but because of the history it holds. It traveled with him on the Envoy mission, ticking silently as he met with the First Lady, as he visited the Met Museum, and as he stood as a beacon of hope during a global crisis. The leather strap, simple and unpretentious, wrapped around a wrist that has executed some of the most difficult choreography in K-pop history, creating a stunning juxtaposition between the sweat of the artist and the seal of the state. For the fans, seeing Min, the member who is always there to comfort others, the angel of the group receiving this ultimate token of appreciation felt like a karmic reward. It was the universe saying, "We see your effort." The watch captures a specific moment in time where pop culture and politics didn't just meet. They danced together, led by the graceful steps of Park Jimin. It stands as a timeless testament that true nobility comes from the heart. And this watch is simply the mirror reflecting that inner light to the world. Number 4. Kim Namjoon, the leader's heavy crown, a symbol of sovereign authority. If there is ever a moment in pop culture history that felt like a prophecy fulfilling itself, it was the sight of Kim Namjoon, the fearless leader of BTS, the articulate genius behind their message. And the man fans affectionately joke should be the president of a country called Namkanda, standing face to face with the actual president of South Korea, Moon Jae-in, to receive a gift that solidified his status as a true statesman. On that momentous morning of September 14th, 2021, inside the grand reception room of the Blue House, the air was vibrating with a specific kind of gravity. A heaviness that only settles when history is being written in real time. Namjoon, standing tall and imposing in his sleek black suit, didn't just look like an idol receiving an award. He looked like a visiting dignitary, a peer in the realm of influence, ready to shoulder the weight of a nation. When President Moon approached him holding that understated beige box containing the presidential watch, it was a symbolic passing of the torch. A gesture that acknowledged RM not just as a musician, but as the voice of South Korea. Now, let's dissect the sheer magnitude of this timepiece, because for a man like RM, who is a connoisseur of fine art, a lover of moon jars, and a collector of indigenous Korean beauty, this watch is the ultimate artifact. The moon watch given to RM features the iconic Phoenix Bangwang emblem embossed in gold on the dial, a mythical bird that has represented the supreme authority of the king since the Joseon dynasty, and now represents the presidency for the leader of the biggest band in the world. To wear the symbol of the leader of the nation is a poetic alignment that sends shivers down the spine, while the watch itself is a modest quartz timepiece, likely manufactured by a small Korean enterprise to champion local industry. Its value to a man like Namjoon is incalculable because it represents intellectual sovereignty. We have seen RM wear luxury pieces like the Patek Philippe Nautilus or the Rolex D watches that scream financial success, but this presidential watch whispers historical significance, as he accepted it with a profound 90-degree bow, receiving it with both hands in the highest form of cultural respect. You could see the realization in his eyes. This was the armor he would wear to the United Nations. Fast forward a few days to New York, to the podium of the UN General Assembly Hall, as RM adjusted the microphone to deliver a speech that would be broadcast to millions. That watch was right there on his wrist, peeking out from his cuff, a silent partner in history. Imagine the pressure coursing through his veins. He wasn't just speaking for himself or his band. He was speaking for the Republic of Korea and for the welcome generation globally. The steady ticking of that quartz movement on his pulse was perhaps the only constant thing in a whirlwind of diplomatic protocol and global scrutiny. The strap, made of genuine, high-quality leather, bound the symbol of the state to the very hand that wrote, "Spring Day in Life Goes On," creating a physical bridge between the emotional vulnerability of his lyrics and the rigid strength of political diplomacy. It is fascinating to reflect on RM's personal aesthetic, which leans heavily towards Koreana. He loves things that celebrate Korean heritage, from traditional paintings to ceramics. So this watch, with the Rose of Sharon and the Hangul signature of the president, fits his soul more perfectly than any Swiss complication ever could. It is a piece of living history. The packaging, marked with people first, resonates deeply with RM's leadership style, which has always been about serving the team and the fans before himself. There is a palpable intensity to this gift because RM is the one who has to answer the tough questions. The one who translates the group's chaotic energy into coherent messages of hope. And this watch is a tangible thank you from the government for that invisible labor. It is a badge of honor that says, "We trust you with our image." For the army watching. Seeing President Namjoon actually holding a presidential seal was a surreal, "we told you so" moment, blurring the lines between the fandom's inside jokes and the hard reality of his geopolitical influence. This isn't just a watch. It is a coronation. It serves as a reminder that before he was a global pop star, he was a boy from Ilsen who loved poetry. And now, he is a diplomat carrying the time of his nation on his wrist. If you were to ask RM which watch in his collection holds the most weight, he might point to the expensive ones for their craftsmanship. But for sheer emotional and historical density, nothing can touch the Blue House watch. It is the physical manifestation of his leadership journey. A journey that took him from handing out flyers on the street to shaking hands with the president, proving that true leadership is timeless. And for Kim Namjoon, this watch is the ultimate crown. Number 3. Jungkook, the Sunshine General's badge of honor, a beacon of hope. When we talk about the heartbeat of BTS, the rhythm that drives their synchronized perfection, we are talking about Jungkook, the man the world knows as And seeing the sunshine of the group step into the solemn halls of the Blue House was a moment where vibrant energy met dignified statecraft in a collision of absolute brilliance. On that crisp September day in 2021, the atmosphere in the Chiangwade was heavy with protocol. Yet when J-Hope stepped forward, there was an undeniable shift in the air. A spark of brightness that even a formal black suit and a face mask couldn't suppress. This is the man who usually commands stages with explosive choreography and neon the hyperbeast of the group, known for his love of avant-garde fashion under Gucci, brands like Louis Vuitton and Audemars Piguet. Yet here he was, standing with the posture of a disciplined soldier, ready to receive a gift that stood in stark, humble contrast to his flashy wardrobe. As President Moon Jae-in handed him the beige box containing the presidential watch, it wasn't just a ceremonial gesture. It was the recognition of a cultural force that has brought joy to millions during the darkest times of the pandemic. Let's dive deep into the symbolism here because it is fascinating. The watch J-Hope received is the specific Phoenix edition, a timepiece that features the legendary bird embossed in gold on the dial, a creature that symbolizes not just the president, but renewal, resurrection, and the dawn of a new era concepts that align chillingly well with J-Hope's very name and his mantra. I'm your hope. You're my hope. While horologists might look at the spec sheet, simple! Reliable quartz movement, a domed mineral glass, and a modest leather strap and dismiss it as a standard government issue item, they would be missing the entire point. For J-Hope, a man who pays attention to the finest details, this watch represents the ultimate validation of his craft. It's a piece unique in terms of provenance. You cannot walk into a store and buy this. You cannot bid for it at Christie's. You have to be chosen by the leader of your nation to wear it. The design features the president's signature in Hangul and the rose of Shari, the national flower that represents the invincible spirit. A spirit J-Hope embodies every time he spends 12 hours in a dance studio perfecting a single move. As he accepted the watch with a deep, respectful bow, his eyes crinkling in that familiar, warm smile. The cameras captured a transformation. The street dancer from Gwangju had officially become a statesman. This watch was the talisman he carried with him as they flew to New York for the 76th United Nations General Assembly. Think about the scene. BTS performing permission to dance in the empty UN headquarters. As J-Hope moved with his signature fluidity, spinning and leading the formation. That presidential watch was there, strapped to his wrist, a silent anchor amidst the whirlwind of global diplomacy. It is a profound juxtaposition, the safety pin of the group. The one who holds everyone together, wearing a watch that symbolizes the safety and stability of the nation. The box itself, made from eco-friendly recycled paper with the People First slogan, resonates with J-Hope's own ethos of kindness and charity. Remember, this is the man who secretly donates millions to children in need. The emotional weight of this gift is staggering when you consider his journey. He started as an underground dancer, often battling prejudice and uncertainty. And now, he possesses a watch that is the highest token of appreciation a Korean citizen can receive from their head of state. It's a message that says, your dance didn't just entertain, it healed. For a fashion icon like J, who understands that accessories are about storytelling, this watch tells the greatest story of all. The story of a boy who dreamed of dancing and ended up moving the world. It is invaluable, not because of gold or diamonds, but because it is soaked in the history of a cultural revolution. It marks the moment when Idol became Envoy, and every time he looks at that simple beige dial, he is reminded that his hope world has expanded to encompass the entire globe. This is the definition of priceless, a legacy strapped to the wrist of the man who taught the world to smile again. Number 2. Min Yoongi, the architect of dreams. A monument to survival. If there is a narrative arc in the history of modern music that defies every law of probability, transforming gritty, raw struggle into the blinding light of national honor. It is the saga of Min Yoongi, the man the world reveres as Suga and fears as Augusti, and witnessing him stand in the Blue House to receive the presidential watch was the ultimate vindication of a prophet who predicted his own rise. On that historic morning of September 14, 2021, the Cheonghwa was filled with the hushed whispers of officials and the click of shutters. But all eyes were drawn to the quiet, stoic figure of Suga. This is the man who once had to choose between eating a bowl of noodles or taking the bus home. The underground rapper from Daegu who sold his beats for pennies. And now, he was standing face to face with President Moon Jae-in. Not to ask for a handout, but to accept the highest seal of diplomatic approval the Republic of Korea can bestow. The atmosphere was electric with unspoken emotion because everyone knew the road he had traveled. He battled depression, social anxiety, and a shattered shoulder to get to this room. When the president handed him the beige box containing the moon watch, it felt like the universe was finally paying off its debt to him. Let's dissect this timepiece because, for a man who treats luxury with a shrug and often critiques materialism in his lyrics, this watch is the only flex that truly matters. The watch features the majestic phoenix Bong Hwang emblem embossed in gold on the dial, flanked by the Rose of Sharon, symbols of the president's authority and the eternal resilience of the nation. For Suga, the symbolism of the phoenix is a bird that rises from its own ashes is chillingly autobiographical. Just months prior to this ceremony, he had undergone major shoulder surgery. a lingering injury from his pre-debut days as a delivery driver. And his return to the stage and subsequent elevation to Special Presidential Envoy was his own literal rebirth. The watch itself is a study in humble power. It's a quartz movement, simple, precise, and unpretentious, made by small Korean artisans to support the domestic economy. It isn't a flashy Rolex or a diamond-encrusted Audemars Piguet, both of which Suga could buy 100 times over. It is a piece of state property that money is forbidden to touch. As he accepted the box with his signature calm, a slight, knowing nod replaced the wide smiles of others, a gesture that said, "We made it." This watch became his armor as they flew to New York for the 76th United Nations General Assembly. When Suga took the podium at the UN, speaking with his deep, resonant voice about the pandemic and the resilience of the youth, that presidential watch was ticking on his wrist, a hidden metronome syncing his words with the heartbeat of his country. It is fascinating to note the Minstradamus effect here. Suga is famous for predicting BTS's milestones, the Billboard #1, the stadium tour, the Grammys, but even he, in his wildest dreams, likely never predicted he would possess a watch gifted by the president for diplomatic service. The leather strap of the watch, likely made from high-grade domestic leather, wrapped around the wrist that has penned hundreds of songs, creating a physical link between his creative genius and his national duty. The People First slogan on the watchbox mirrors Suga's own deep-seated empathy for the underdog, a theme that runs through his entire discography. The value of this gift is astronomical, not because of its materials, but because of its provenance. It is a validation of his pain. It is the government saying, your struggle was not in vain. It helped build the cultural identity of this nation. For his parents, back in Daegu, seeing their son who once worried them sick with his unstable career, path received. Presidential gift is the kind of honor that transcends fame. It is about dignity, respect, and lineage. Unlike a music award that gathers dust, this watch is a historical artifact. It captures the exact moment when the bad boy of K-pop became a pillar of soft power. Every time he checks the time on that dial, he isn't just seeing numbers. He is seeing the distance between the basement studio in Namsan and the presidential palace in Seoul. It is a reminder that while he may be a global superstar, he is first and foremost a proud son of South Korea. This watch is the physical manifestation of his blood, sweat, and tears. A priceless badge of survival that proves the most valuable things in life are the ones you earned when the odds are stacked against you. Number 1. Kim Seok-jin. The worldwide handsome's ultimate legacy. A promise kept to the family. Here we are, at the absolute pinnacle of our countdown. The final chapter in this saga of national treasures. And it rightfully belongs to the man who anchors the group with his laughter, his silver voice, and his unshakable sense of duty to the eldest brother, the Taehyung, Kim Si. If the other members represented youth, passion, and artistic genius, Jin represented the dignity and the foundational strength of BTS. And seeing him stand in the grand reception room of the Blue House on September 14th, 2021, was the emotional climax that millions of armies had been waiting for. This moment was cinematic perfection. The man who was scouted for his breathtaking visuals while stepping off a bus was now stepping into the center of South Korean political power. Not as a pretty face, but as a special presidential envoy. As President Moon Jae-in approached the final member of the line, the weight of the moment was palpable. Jin, dressed immaculately, in a fitted black suit that accentuated his broad shoulders that have figuratively carried the burden of being the oldest for a decade, bowed with a depth and sincerity that silenced the room. When the president placed the beige box containing the moon watch into Jin's hands, it wasn't just a gift, it was the fulfillment of a lifelong dream, not just for him, but for his family. We have to talk about the narrative arc here because it is Jin has famously shared stories about his upbringing, about wanting to become someone his mother could boast about to her friends, someone who could stand tall with pride, holding that presidential watch, a symbol of the highest recognition a citizen can achieve, was the ultimate answer to that wish. It was as if he was saying, "Look, Mom, I didn't just make it to TV. I made it to the history books. Now, let's analyze the artifact itself with the scrutiny it deserves, for this is the holy grail of the collection." The watch Jin received is the definitive Phoenix edition of the Blue House watch. The dial is a masterwork of symbolic restraint, featuring the Bangwang Phoenix embossed in gold. A mythical bird that is said to appear only when a virtuous king rules a peaceful realm. The pairing of Jin, a man known for his kindness, his ability to diffuse tension with humor, and his worldwide handsome face that transcends cultural barriers with the phoenix is poetic justice. The watch is powered by a high-grade Korean quartz movement, a deliberate choice to showcase the reliability and precision of domestic engineering. It features a domed mineral crystal and a case made of surgical-grade stainless steel, polished to a mirror finish that rivals the gleam of the trophies on Jin's shelf. But unlike the Rolex Day Date or the Cartier tank that Jin might wear to a fashion show, this watch has zero market value because it is beyond the market. It is illegal to sell. If you were to find one on the black market, which has happened with watches from previous administrations, the prices are astronomical. But a Moon Jae-in watch gifted personally to a BTS member, that is essentially a national relic. It is the Excalibur of Kpop memorabilia. The strap is made from genuine vegetable tanned leather in a soft beige tone, a nod to the eco-conscious Green New Deal policies of the administration, and as it wrapped around Jin's wrist, it bound him to the service of the state. The interaction between Jin and President Moon was filled with a subtle, warm energy. Jin, who is often the mood maker, maintained a perfect balance of solemnity and approachability, his eyes smiling above his mask. You could see the pride in President Moon's eyes, too. He was entrusting the image of his country to a young man who had proven that soft power could be stronger than hard politics. Following the ceremony, this watch traveled with Jin to New York for the 76th United Nations General Assembly. When Jin stood at the podium in the UN General Assembly Hall, delivering his portion of the speech with that clear, stable diction that news anchors would envy, the watch was there, hidden beneath his cuff, a silent guardian. He spoke about the vaccine as a ticket to meeting fans, a message of responsibility and hope, and the watch on his wrist underscored the official capacity of his words. He wasn't just speaking as an idol. He was speaking as an envoy with the full backing of the Blue House. The People First slogan on the watch box is particularly resonant with Jin's character. He is known for his Ichin segments, for his dad jokes, for treating fans like friends. He puts people first in the most literal, human sense. Furthermore, the cultural weight of this gift for the eldest son in a Korean household cannot be overstated. In Confucian culture, the success of the eldest son is the success of the family line. By bringing home the presidential watch, Jin solidified the Kim family's honor in a way that no amount of money could. It is a kind of heirloom that will be spoken about for generations. Your grandfather received this from the president. The watch captures the essence of Jin's duality, the ability to be the king of visual and the humble servant simultaneously. It is a testament to his patience, his growth from a novice singer to a global superstar who commands the stage at the UN. Every tick of that quartz movement is a reminder of the long nights, the sacrifices, and the relentless pressure he faced to lead his younger brothers to this very moment.